Well, good morning, West Frankfort. My name is Steve Neal, and I work for your Illinois Baptist State Association as what is referred to as a zone consultant, which means I have the joy of visiting with churches across South Central Illinois with issues that they are dealing with, including looking for a next pastor. And so it's my pleasure to, after having talked with the deacon body a few nights ago, to make this little short video to share with you some of the qualities and qualifications that I believe you will be wanting to look for as you go into the process of nominating and electing a committee, a team, to be searching for the man that God has selected to be your next pastor. I know that you realize that this is a critical and very monumental decision in the life of your church family. Not just the pastor, but the people who are going to be given that responsibility of seeking that man. A good friend of mine, Lanny Faulkner, said one time that for a church, other than choosing or voting to plant a new church or to close a church, the most important decision that a church will make is who will lead them as their pastor. And to think about the fact that you as a church family are going to give that responsibility of bringing a person to you to recommend as your next pastor to 6 people or 7 people that will be on a committee makes it a critically important process. And so after meeting with the deacons, they asked me just to make this little video to just share with you some of the qualifications and qualities that those people need to have. First of all, of course, they need to be spiritual people. I know that all of us in Christ are spiritual, but there are some of us that are more attuned to God's Spirit and how He leads. And you're looking for people on this team that will be thinking about the spiritual future of your congregation. They'll be thinking about the spiritual health of your church and the type of man that God would call to lead you as a spiritual people. Not just should they be spiritual, they should be mature in their spiritual life and in their attitude. They need to be people who are not prone to be swept by emotions or other issues, external or internal, but they have a maturity about them so that they are able to sit and prayerfully deliberate over who God would have for your church. And that leads me to the third thing. They've got to be people who are committed to prayer. These are people who understand that this task cannot be done like you do tasks for searching for any other person in the business world, in the secular world, looking for a doctor, looking for an attorney, looking for something else. This is a very, very prayer-centered task. And I know all of you will be praying for that team and for your next pastor. These people that you elect to serve on the search team need to be people of prayer. They need to be faithful. And by faithful, I mean they have to have a passionate love for First Baptist Church of West Frankfort. I mean to the point of being self-sacrificial for the sake of the church. They have to be people who are deeply committed to what your church is doing, what God has called you to do, your place in serving your community and the world for Christ. They've got to be faithful, folks. They need to be resilient. And what I mean by resilient is, if you've ever been on a search team, you know there are often discouragements. You may feel like that you have found exactly the right guy, and then he decides that God's calling him somewhere else, and you get discouraged, and you just want to give up. And that's where you have to remember that this committee cannot finish their work until they do what God has assigned them, and the church has assigned them to do, and that is to seek God's will and to determine His will for who will be your next pastor. So they have to have a tenacity about them. So that's critically important. And then the sixth thing I wanted to mention is, and this is very, very important as well, and that is that they have to be discreet. Search teams work with a lot of very personal information about candidates, about issues related to the life of the church, and there needs to be a level of understanding that this is a task that takes discretion. If loose lips sink ships, let me tell you, loose lips can sink churches. And so you want to make sure that the people that you nominate and elect to be on this team are people who understand the gravity of what it is that they're going to be doing. Listen, I want you to know that I and my wife are praying for your church on a regular basis. And really beyond that, throughout IBSA, there are folks who are praying for First Baptist Church of West Frankfort. We want, almost as much as you do, for you to have exactly the right man in your pulpit as your pastor. So remember, spiritually mature, faithful, prayerful, resilient, and discreet. I want you to know I'm looking forward to seeing you face to face here in the next few weeks as we move through this process together. But for now, I'm so thankful for Pastor John, for your deacons, for their leadership. Continue to pray for them as they work with you and guide you through this process. And I look forward before too long to meet your new pastor search team and begin their training process. God bless you. Have a wonderful worship service, and thank you for letting me have a part in the service today.